Hey guys, it's Chili here. Welcome back to Project Twin. Today we are going to give Chili some friends to play with, and we're going to work on some primitive placement and collision of our game characters. Alright, now I think that Chili is looking a little lonely in our game here. We need to give him some friends, and it wouldn't be a Chili joint without some goddamn motherfucking feces. So we're going to add Poo Class to this game. And it's basically the same idea as the Chili. It's just a basic character, only it's much simpler because it doesn't have any animations. It's just a single sprite, the Poo sprite. So there aren't any animations in this one, and that means that set direction is super simple, drawing is simple, everything is pretty goddamn simple. It still has the effect. The damage effect is present in this code base. And then for game.h, we had a vector of poos, game.cpp, we construct the poos. Here the poos are going to follow Chili, so you get a vector from the poo to Chili, and then you normalize that, and that's the direction. You update the poo, you draw the poos, everything is good. I think, what change did I, I did added a get position to Chili so that you could calculate the position of the poos to follow Chili. And if you run that, you're going to get, poos, and they're following the Chili. You'll notice here they gravitate towards this position here because all of our sprites are being defined according to their drop position at the top left. But we'll change that very soon. Next thing we do here, we organize the character files into filters. That's just in the project. Those filters here, I added a filter for characters. You'll see them later on. Testing damage graphics on poos. I just made it so when you press the spacebar you can see the damage animation for the poo. It worked fine. Now here's an important one. Draw position offset added for Chili. So right at this point what we're doing is we are drawing our characters based on the position. So the position gives the position of the top left. So if I say my Chili character is at this position on the screen, it'll be drawn like this. But what we really want to do is we want to define our character based on the position they actually are standing at, which is going to be around the base of their feet right here. So I want to define my positions here. So when I say my character is standing here, it's going to be drawn like this. So what we do is we create an offset, and that offset is used to translate, let me just get a good color here, to translate between, so this is the actual position, offset is translating between that position and the draw position when we draw. And that's pretty simple. We add a draw offset. I just basically calculated this by looking at it and seeing what looked good. And then we get the draw position from the draw offset plus the position. Legs are offset from the draw position by a little bit here, and then we draw using those values. Here I'm basically doing the same thing for the poo, so you don't need to see that again. Here I add ability to draw thin rectangles, and I also added some sexy rectangle stuff. Let's see what I added here. So in rectangle.h, I've added some utilities. I've added isDegenerate, so that will let us know if a rectangle, what is a degenerate rectangle? If you have a rectangle, its left is like this, and its right is left plus 1, and its bottom is top plus 1. This is the smallest rectangle you can have. If the left and the right and the top and the bottom are all equal to each other, that's a degenerate rectangle. That won't draw anything, right? It's got to have at least, the right has to be at least one bigger than the left. I added a function to clip one rectangle to another, and here's to get a clipped rectangle. So if you got a rectangle A and you got a rectangle B, and you clip A to B or B to A, doesn't really matter, this would be the result here. You're basically just finding the intersection. And these are useful because in graphics I add a function to draw a thin rectangle here, and the important thing is that you have to be able to clip this rectangle to the screen. So you're drawing 4 lines, so you got to clip those 4 lines to the screen region. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. And here's what that rectangle drawing code looks like. You can see here I can go off the side of the screen, and it does not crash my shit. Sexy rectangles. And we're going to use this right away. So what I do is I use those rectangles to visualize the hitbox of Chili. So I'm adding a hitbox first of all. And the hitbox is, where is that added? So I add the hitbox by adding the width and the height of the hitbox. So the hitbox is going to be centered at the position of the character. It's a rectangle centered at the position of the character, and get hitbox generates that rectangle from center using the position and the half width and half height of the hitbox. So I do that, and then in game.cpp I just draw a thin rectangle from the hitbox so I can visualize the hitbox and see if it looks okay. Then I added the hitbox to the poo, and let's see what that looks like. It's the same idea in the code. Let's see what it looks like when we run it. So here is what the hitboxes look like. This is what I'm going with for right now. Now we need to do something with them. You can see it's a little off, it's a little unaligned here when we're facing to the left. That's just to do with some, bullshit of the mirroring of the sprite. I should probably fix that at some point, but for right now I'm not going to worry about it. You might also think that it's weird for Chili to have the hitbox down here, like the entire head is not part of the hitbox. But that's actually fairly common. You see that in games like, for example, Binding of Isaac, and it makes sense. This is where the character is actually standing on the ground. So, for example, if a bullet were to pass behind him, it would fly through the head in 2D space, even though it shouldn't actually hit the body. So it's complicated. We're going to get into it. It has to do with some kind of pseudo 3D height bullshit. But for right now, we're going to keep the hitbox for the legs around here. And that's important because the hitbox is also going to be the box that determines collision with walls and things. So if the hitbox was the entire head, you would only be able to stand up to the base of the wall. You wouldn't be able to walk right up to it. You'll see what I mean when we get into walls. So next thing I do, I adjust the base position of Chili's hitbox a little bit. Chili damage good, poo damage getting stuck. What is this? Alright, so I did some real bullshit in this update here. You can see there's a lot of changes. Not as many as it looks, but there's still quite a bit. So first things first, I renamed sequence to, I believe, down here, animation sequence. So that caused a bunch of little renaming changes around here. But the main thing is I've added a new class, an inner class called Damage Effect Controller. And this class is going to handle the damage effect. Because what I want for the character is when the Chili takes damage, I want him to flash for the damage, but then I want him to blink to signal invincibility frames. So he's going to have some invincibility frames and blink. You see that effect a lot in games, right? So what I did was I created a separate class to control that damage effect, because it's going to have a bunch of sequences. It's going to be a state machine. First, it is going to be, it's going to show the flash of damage, and then it's going to enter a blinking state, and then it's going to enter the normal state. So we have the red duration, the blink half period, which is the rate of blinking basically, and the total duration of the entire effect. So, I mean, it's a lot of bullshit, and I don't think that this was super necessary to do, or even really a good idea. It's just something I wanted to try out. So I'll make a little sub-component class here that handles the damage effect. And so it draws, the drawing code is handled inside of here. So what happens is this subclass, so it maintains a reference to the parent, that's Chili, and it's going to use that reference to draw the sprite, and it's going to draw it based on the state. So if the effect is active, then it depends on the time of the effect, whether to draw it red, whether to draw it blinking, and then the blink effect will either draw it or not draw it, depending on how much time has passed. So yeah, it's just a bunch of bullshit, but interesting little thing to try. Added lots of comments in here and shit, so you can review the code if you're interested in the gory details. Now I found the poo damage was getting stuck. When it hit the damage animation, it wasn't returning back to normal, and the reason for that was I wasn't actually updating the poo in the code there. And then I added take damage from the poo. So here is where we actually start implementing some collision. So in the damage effect controller, I add a getter here to check to see if the damage effect is active. Because if it is active, that means that Chili is in invincible mode. So here, something is happening that I don't really like, and that is that this damage effect controller, which is a graphical entity, concerned with graphics is starting to be concerned with the simulation, and I don't like that, but we'll fix that when it becomes a bigger problem. And then we have an apply damage. I just renamed activate effect to apply damage, and that activates the damage effect controller. And I do a bool is invincible, so if the damage effect is active, then that means that chili is invincible. In game.cpp, what we're going to do here, let's see here, we're commenting out the thing where when we press space, it triggers the damage effect. We don't need that anymore. Comment that out, and in here, what we're going to do is we are going to update the poos so that they're moving, and then this is for every poo. If chili is not invincible and chili's hitbox is overlapping with the hitbox of the poo, then we apply damage to chili and we play the hit sound. Then I just added some better sound for the damage effect, and let's take a look at what this is. So now if I let the poos come after me, we get some sound. I hope you guys can hear that. Nice guttural grunt there. You see we have invincibility here, so we're not continually taking damage. We only take damage when our invincibility frames run out. And that's gonna about do it for today. One thing I just want to note here is it's easy to fall in the trap of, like, when you're developing something, when you're trying to figure out, for example, collision, and it's not working, and just keep staring at the pixels or keep staring at the debug code and trying to figure out why isn't it working. But never forget, you are the developer. You have total control over this system. You can create, debug diagnostic drawings and little diagrams in your program to help you figure out what is going wrong, or to help you maybe try to craft better game mechanics. Anyways, stay tuned for next episode where you're going to add attacks and bullets into the game, and we're also going to deal with some nasty problems that have to do with vectors and pointers. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click the like button. It helps a lot. And I will see you soon with some more Project Twin.